This morning I'm interviewing Jeff Roitman for our ACSM Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science series. So Jeff, welcome. Thank you
Jack.
for taking time to come and talk to us. I just wanted to start out a little bit, Jeff, with your early background. High school, college, what did you major in, degrees, that type of thing?
I went to high school like everybody else.
What
well,
state?
at North Kansas City High School in North Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Kansas City and grew up there. I went from there to the University of Missouri, majored in physical education and English.
And what time period would that have been?
That was, well, I graduated from high school in '63, so that would have been '63 to '67.
Okay, and English, that's an
And
interesting
English, yeah,
combination.
yeah. I think I had a really sort of charismatic English teacher. In fact, I know I did as a freshman, and I loved reading. My father was a coach, and so I grew up in a gym, so I knew I wanted to be a PE major, and the English just kind of attracted me, and I stayed with it, and it was good.
Did you play any sports in college, or?
Not in college, no.
Okay.
Played high school basketball, little high school golf, nothing else really.
So after your undergrad degree, what did you do next?
After my undergrad degree, I got married that summer, and my wife and I took jobs at an Army base in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And the honest truth is, I did not know where Puerto Rico was.
Yeah,
and when we got there, I had to look it up on the map.
In the 60s, right?
I had really no idea where I went. So, and I taught phys ed and English there and 8th grade science for 2 years, and then decided that probably wasn't the life I wanted to live. Coached basketball, which I really loved. So I went back to graduate school, University of Northern Colorado, which was then Colorado State College.
Is that Greeley?
And Greeley,
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just 60 miles from here.
Yeah.
Spent 3.5 years at Greeley. Actually finished my master's and was headed back to Kansas City. I had sort of a grad assistant basketball coach job at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City, but they offered me a lab assistantship at UNC. So I really loved being in the lab, and I dearly loved being in school.
Mm-hmm.
Had they paid me, I probably would have done that for a long, long time.
So now, what did you do your master's thesis, and what had you specialized then, or what was it? Sort of a general degree,
it was
an MS?
It was
probably?
an MS.
Yeah.
My thesis was on jet lag, and actually some of the guys that got me involved in ACSM were subjects in the thesis. They were having to stay up all night, and I had to take them to breakfast. Of course, I had sleep, but
yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay, so then you moved on to a PhD program? Or
I just stayed at Greeley.
So you just
did my
stayed
doctorate there.
Because they offered you this lab?
Correct. They had
got
it was a fairly new position, actually. I was the second grad assistant in the lab, and it was a developing lab. So I just kind of stayed. It was
And then what did you do your doctoral dissertation? Did you do something different?
I did something different, and it was something that I just sort of fell into. It was a dissertation on a blood cell metabolite, red blood cell metabolite, in cross-country distance runners. It was 2,3-diphosphoglycerate. It shifts oxygen dissociation curves, and I was kind of interested in it, but honestly, it wasn't a great piece of science, as probably most of those early dissertations aren't. And it just kind of folded into the closet and got shut up, and that was it. So.
And what year did you finish your PhD?
Wow. 1972.
Okay.
And that was, interestingly, this interview caused me to think about this. The first meeting, ACSM meeting I went to was Philadelphia in 1972.
Wow, that's early.
With
Compared to the other
Yeah,
people I've
yeah,
talked to.
it's
That's very early.
a
yeah.
long time.
So there was pretty small then.
It was
the
very
meeting
small.
was pretty small.
You know, and you walk around, and the meeting rooms were not crowded, and
Yeah.
and as a new sort of almost graduating doctoral student, I got to see people who were really my heroes.
Yeah.
You know, John
Yeah.
Faulkner and some of those people, and I just was really
In awe, huh?
yeah, walking around with my mouth hanging.
Did you present a paper that year, or just
I did
go?
not. No. I actually interviewed for a job at Central Michigan University with the department chair and the dean there, mostly because I had gone to graduate school with 3 or 4 of those faculty from
Oh,
CMU, Rich
okay.
Parr and some of those people,
Okay.
who then put me in a car and we drove to Philadelphia for this meeting. So,
Okay.
and I honestly had never been to a meeting, knew very little about ACSM, was very little involved as a graduate student. But seeing all these kind of legends at this first
Seemed to be
meeting
the right
was,
thing to
yeah,
do.
it was really, I loved it being there. Yeah.
So, take me beyond 72 now. Where did you, what was your job? So you went to
Well, I ended
CMU.
up at, yeah, I ended up at CMU, teaching in their, I was actually in their Department of Health Education, which is where it was then, I think kinesiology is what it was called at Central.
That was pretty early for
yeah,
that title,
yeah,
actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were housed in the Department of Health Education. So there were
That's interesting.
4
Yeah.
people who we all called ourselves exercise physiologists in that department. That's where the lab was, that's where the majors were, that's where everybody was. And I taught anatomy and physiology, I taught exercise phys, a couple of graduate courses, and the 4 of us started an adult fitness program.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Back I think the program actually started in 73, maybe 74. We took a trip to La Crosse.
I was going to say that would have been the
yeah.
premier one.
Yeah, Phil was a mentor certainly for us, and
Yeah.
helped us get the program started, and it really became a large program.
Was it on campus?
It was on campus.
Was it cardiac rehab, or was
It was
it
not
a little-
cardiac rehab.
It was not. Okay.
We were doing truly adult fitness at that time, mostly town and faculty and staff on campus. I think, I don't really have a good memory of it, but at the high point, we probably had 100, 150 people
Wow,
in the
that's
program.
good.
It was like Phil's program.
Yeah,
so.
very much like
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, that was neat. So, what was the next stop after CMU?
Let's see, the next stop after CMU was Auburn University. I went there actually to start an adult fitness program, an exercise testing program in the hospital, and a cardiac rehab program.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
I
this was not part of a university now. This is
Well, no, it was at Auburn University. It was a university
Oh.
program. They were tied into the hospital.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they
So you
actually,
still had
that
a
was my-
faculty appointment at,
Yes,
at Auburn.
yeah, I was
see.
teaching at Auburn. Teaching, actually, most of my appointment was to get this program off the ground and started. And it was, I lasted a year. The Deep South was just really
Different.
it was different. I knew, I didn't mind it. I really liked the weather, and I knew that I couldn't stay there forever.
You were married then? Did you have
I was
children?
married,
or
no children,
okay, so-
but my wife was just unhappy.
yeah.
So a clinical job came up, sort of surfaced for me, and I went back to Michigan to Kalamazoo, to a hospital in Kalamazoo. That was my first clinical cardiac rehab job.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, that was your move in that direction.
Yeah, that was 1981, I'm pretty sure.
And how long did you stay with them?
I was there for probably 2 years. I really wanted to get back to Kansas City.
And that was a non-university appointment.
That was a non-university job. That was a total clinical hospital job. I was with a cardiologist named Enrique Leguizamon, who was an Argentinian sort of wild man. He was doing, actually, interestingly, probably one of the first dozen people in the country to be doing balloon angioplasty.
Oh. Wow.
And he was a great teacher. He really got me in over my head clinically and taught me a lot of stuff.
And you had a facility right at the hospital where you worked out of, and
they had built a facility that was just outside the emergency room for cardiac rehab. He sort of fostered this thing and moved it along, and it was we heard, and I was actually working there with Reed Humphrey at the time, and it was the first, according to Enrique, Dr. Leguizamon, it was the first freestanding cardiac rehab facility in the country.
And what year again? I mean, that's probably pretty,
that would have been
accurate.
79,
okay,
I think,
now,
or 80, maybe 1980.
Did you do stress tests too? Or
we did
no?
stress testing. We did cardiac rehab. We were doing a little, they were starting to do some nuclear stuff then, so we were doing some of that. It was, Leguizamon was on the edge of letting really clinical exercise physiologists function independently. We were doing the stress testing. If we needed a doc, we would call him. There were nurses in the building all the time.
And you were right next door to the ER.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That worked out okay.
It was, it was a great.
That's really pretty neat,
yeah.
Jeff. I had no idea that was going on that early.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience for me. I learned more clinically and medically than in any other job because of him and because he just shoved us in and made us do stuff.
Yeah. Wow. And next stop.
Next stop. Next stop was the job in Kansas City that I really wanted, and that was at Research Medical Center. At that time was the second largest hospital in town.
And you're back home now.
I'm back home. I'm taking care of my father, who I thought my father and mother needed somebody around. My brother was a career naval officer, so he was not coming back to town.
Yeah, I know what I
And my father actually at that time was younger than I am now, so I think he would have been horrified to know that I came back to take care of him.
I don't need any.
Yeah, no, what are you doing? But
so this is an independent. What'd you research? What?
Research Medical Center. It's just a hospital.
Okay.
They actually
not associated with the university.
No. Well, it was a teaching hospital at the time.
Okay, but
It was
you're still
with,
not a
but I
back
am not
to a faculty appointment.
Right. I had a medical faculty adjunct appointment.
Okay,
that was all.
I see.
But my job there was to start a cardiac rehab program. They had nothing.
Wow.
So those were in the days when you could do inpatient, you could outpatient, and I started this program by just sort of scratching around and finding what I could find. And the first patient we ever did outpatient was a person that I pulled some monitors up out of the old ICU and hardwired him and put him on a Monarch bicycle ergometer. And we would talk for an hour every day. So
as he was
rehabbing, yeah.
Wow. So you had that experience though from Kalamazoo, which was nice.
Yeah.
So is there one more stop to Rockhurst?
Well, the stop where I am right now, I was at Research.
We'll do that, and then we'll come back to ACSM.
All right. I was at Research for 27 years.
Wow. I had no idea you were there that long.
Yeah, from that time when we started the program to the time that I left was, I think, probably 3 or 4 years ago right now. The program grew. Healthcare got very complicated, shall we say. It was just, it got to the point where you really couldn't be creative in a program where honestly they didn't need somebody like me to be there. And an opportunity came up at this small liberal arts Jesuit Catholic college in Kansas City, and I went and have loved every minute of it.
Yeah,
so I've been there for 3.5 years now.
It must have, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you seem like the type that really likes students. So
yeah.
I bet that was something you were glad to get back.
I had always thought I would end my career teaching. Probably if I had a choice and had done it when I wanted, it would have been a little bit earlier, but I really liked being around students. It was a very it was almost a startling experience for me because I'd never been around. I mean, it had been years and years since my children were that age.
Me too. Yeah.
I did not know what to expect.
It's a whole new generation, isn't it?
It was a real adjustment for me,
Yeah.
but I really like being around them. I like being able to bring my clinical experience to the classroom, which is something I think they would not have had the opportunity to have in other circumstances, and it's been a great move for me. I love it there. Nice small college, good students.
And you could stay there too. I mean, you didn't have to move, right? It's
Yeah,
in the
right.
same-
Our home was in Kansas City,
Yeah.
so we just kind
That's
of
even nicer.
stayed. Yeah, it was great.
So going back to ACSM, 1972.
1972, first meeting.
Did you stay involved with ACSM through all these years? Because we didn't have the summit then, we didn't have the Health and Fitness Journal then, you know. Did you go to the annual meetings, present papers? Did you not feel like cardiac rehab fit very well into ACSM in the 70s and 80s or any?
You know, it was really the only place for cardiac rehab in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
So all of my contemporaries were there.
So it was
we didn't have AACDPR.
still perfect for you.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so there were sessions. Yes, I presented papers. Yes, I went to meetings.
Was Barry Franklin involved?
Barry was involved then.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the old. In fact, it was the days. There were probably, I think it was 74 or 75 that the first Aspen meeting was held, where they
of
wrote
course.
the first set of
With
guidelines.
Balky and-
yeah.
So did you
exactly.
go to those,
Yes,
Jeff?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even know.
And
I
I-
didn't think of that.
Oh man.
Those were
Yeah,
legendary.
we talk about legends.
Legends.
I was
Yeah.
walking around with my mouth open the whole time. I had no idea. I mean, David Dill, Bruno Balky, just
Yeah, those
everybody who you read about in textbooks today was there. Bruno Balky gave me my certification exam.
were. Is that right?
Yeah, I was
Wow.
scared to death.
Yeah,
I thought I was just going to infarct right there.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Darn it, I would have forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Those were just classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really something.
Wow.
So,
of course, it was the perfect home for you.
Oh,
then.
it was great. I mean, we started the certification program. I was in the second group to get program director certification. I think I did it in Ann Arbor. And when you ask about meetings, I think honestly the only meeting I've missed is the Hawaii meeting.
Wow.
I think a lot of
I don't
people
even know
miss
when
one.
that was.
Yeah, I don't. I think it was. I don't
I
know.
can't
I
even
can't tell
guess
you.
at
No.
this point
It was
either,
late
Jeff.
70s, maybe early 80s.
Yeah, at that time, that's a long
So,
way.
yeah, I stayed involved going to meetings. I was not involved in committee work.
No certification thing.
Well, the certification was probably the only thing I really was
okay.
involved in, and I think I was dragged along. I mean, one of the questions that was on the sheet that I saw was who got you involved.
Yes,
And
yes.
I think really Rich Parr was
Okay.
the sort of first influence who kind of dragged me along.
And that was at SMU? Or
That was CMU, yeah,
CMU,
Central Michigan.
yeah,
Rich
yeah,
was at
yeah,
Central Michigan.
yeah,
He
yeah.
just retired last year. And we had started that adult fitness program, and through his sort of contacts at Ann Arbor and with Phil Wilson, got us sort of an invitation to go to this Aspen meeting, which was by invitation only. And I don't think I opened my mouth for 4 days at that meeting. I had nothing to say around those people.
Did you go several different years
Yeah.
after that?
Yeah,
then?
we went. I went probably for 5 or 6 years after that, those meetings, and then my first really committee involvement with ACSM was, I said I'd worked with Reed Humphrey at Borges Hospital in Kalamazoo. That was my first clinical job, and he became involved in certification and asked me to be on his subcommittee.
Okay.
So I went to a Snowmass meeting with Reed. I'm sure Larry Kinney was there. I was there. A couple of other people that. I mean, it was a bigger meeting of the certification committee. So that was my first real committee involvement. Was a subcommittee of certification.
Before we run out of time, I told you it goes really
Okay.
fast. I think of you as Publications
Yeah.
Committee Chair. I think of you involved with the ACSM Health and Fitness Journal. Can you talk a little bit, I guess in reverse order, it seems to me, looking at this over time, the summits have been a great thing for
Yeah.
ACSM.
I think they have.
I mean, coming from your background,
Yes.
again, it sort of brought in a whole group of people that
Right.
may not have had a place at the annual meeting.
No, I think that's true, and I think part of what I really tried to advocate for on the certification committee, and certainly in publications, was something like the summit to bring to translate the literature to the practitioner.
Yes.
And that's really what Certified News was, which we helped get started when I was on certification committee, and which a lot of these publications, and that's what the summit is. So, yeah.
And I think this was the 15th or something like that. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
wrong.
know. There have been a lot of
It's
them.
moved right along
Right,
and have
right.
become highly popular. And so, Publications Committee, you got to work with Mark Robertson
Yep.
and a lot of good journals, good
Well,
books.
that was also a great experience.
How long
for
did
me.
you do that?
No, I don't really know. I was chair for 8 years.
That's a
I
long
was
time.
on the committee, I think, for 4 or 5 years before that. Larry Kinney got me involved in publications. When he moved over and became chair, I was appointed as the liaison to the health and fitness and stayed there. I liked that work. This is my first year out, and it's just time to go. It's time to turn it over to new people. But it was really interesting. We worked on editors for all of the ACSM journals. All the guidelines were published under the auspices of Publications Committee, so I think I was involved in at least 4 sets of guidelines during my time there. Resource manual, certification review.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm trying to remember how it happened, when it happened, but just the move, what do you call it, the partnership with Williams
LWW?
Williams and Wilkins
Right.
was a significant
Yeah.
thing. Was that during your
Yeah,
tenure?
that was during my time, and I still remember sitting in a meeting. Larry Kinney was chair then, so I really think he and I really think Mark Robertson were operative in this, but we were sitting in a Publications Committee meeting, and Jim Whitehead was there, and they announced that they were the royalty sort of dividend that ACSM was getting out of this partnership was $1 million, and I thought, whoa, that really is
That gets your attention.
Yeah, it is really unbelievable.
Wow.
And it's been a great partnership over the years.
I also made a note to myself to ask you about your book, your Exercise Professionals
yeah.
Guide. Is that the first edition, or are you in a second?
No, that's the first one.
It is, okay.
My sort of co-author and I, Tom LaFontaine, who's been a writing partner of mine for 25 years and a longtime friend, had always sort of groused that nobody was really saying, okay, here's what you need to do. We would say what we thought people would do, 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, but they didn't really get you a whole lot with respect to benefits and prevention. So we proposed to LWW this book, and they said they would publish it, and so we just finished it. Yeah, it was published in February.
Yeah, and again, if you look at the title, health strategies for preventing and reducing chronic disease.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, talk about timely.
It is timely, and it's something that, over the years, honestly, Tom has been, for me, the mentor in that, but it's really the thing that I tried to do with patients. I loved working with patients all those years in the hospital, and trying to get them even to make small changes, I think was
Can be
was something that I
life-changing,
I just really was. I was insistent that they do something with their life to make it healthier, that the surgeon, by sewing up their sternum, didn't cure their heart disease.
That wasn't the end
Yeah,
of it right
exactly.
there. Well, I forgot to check, and I don't know this. Is that an ACSM book?
It is an ACSM book.
Okay.
Actually, it's the first in cooperation with book that ACSM published. We've written that into the sort of operating codes of the Publications Committee before I'd ever conceptualized the book. But
Yeah.
Tom and I just decided to do it in cooperation with. So.
Good.
Yeah,
So
was-
it worked.
Yeah,
It worked out.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I'm glad I'm done. I can tell you that.
Anyhow, we're just out of time already, but I just wanted to just ask everyone this this long perspective on the college. Any comment on sort of where we're at, where we're going, things looking good?
Yeah, I think things look great. I think from my perspective, looking from where that first meeting I ever went to, which was
Right.
so small and just little,
Yeah.
to where we are today, what I really like is the public health advocacy. I love Bob
That's great.
Salas's initiative
Yeah.
of Exercise is Medicine. I have believed that for 20 years, and I think it's a great initiative. And I think this public health advocacy is a huge service that ACSM can do.
Yeah, the whole idea of physical activity
Yeah.
as a key public health
Yeah.
ingredient, as Steve Blair and
Right.
others have said, is,
Right.
seems to me, again, looking at the big picture, a significant
Yeah.
change.
I think it's a huge change, and it's a really good thing for ACSM.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Jeff. It goes fast.
Nah, it does go fast, and thank you for asking. I wanted to just say that I was convinced you had emailed the wrong person when you asked
No,
me to do this.
2 people told me that, and I had to say, no, you're right. I do want to talk to you. So thanks so much for
Thank
taking
you.
time to visit.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.